Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we are here for another short story discussion. A short story discussion which will appear in two separate playlists here on the channel. Number one, obviously, dropping stuff off of my desk. I have too much going on. One, obviously, the short story discussion playlist here on the channel. But number two, so it'll be the 26th video in that playlist. But number two, the read-along that I'm doing for Dubliners, short story by short story through Dubliners. This is the third in a 15-part series for that playlist. So we have here one of James Joyce's best-known short stories, one of his most popular short stories, a very short story. He's giving Hemingway a run for his money in this one. I would wager to bet that we are right around the 1,000 word mark. Actually, let's see. I can check. I questionably, illegally copy and pasted this text, and it was all torn apart by the Word document itself. We are, it doesn't tell me. Why doesn't it tell me? Normally it tells me. Oh well. Around the 1,000 word mark, I assume. But we are here for this short story. If I can get back to the top of it. There we go. So, what happened in this short story? We'll open up with a recap of the short story, go into the lit crit for this short story, and then I think there is one very important writer's note for the writer's corner portion of this video. So, what happened in Araby? Our narrator is a young man who finds himself in love with his friend's sister, no less, but they have nearly no contact outside of his watching her and trying to be seen until she asks him if he's going to the Araby, a sort of flea market slash fair type thing, from what I can gather. She says she can't go, and he says if he does, he will buy something for her. Of course, then he has to go. And every intervening moment between this admission and him going is absolutely torturous, up to the evening of the event where his uncle is supposed to give him money and let him go. His uncle is exceedingly late home, claiming that he forgot the whole affair. He finally gets there, his uncle, and he's searching, or no, pardon me. Our narrator finally gets to the Araby, and he is searching for a gift to get his beloved. Until he witnesses a young woman who is sitting with two English boys, and as they tease her about some unsavory thing she's accused of saying, the girl pauses their conversation to come over and speak to our narrator, but seemingly out of a sense of quote unquote duty. Our narrator decides thereafter he does not want anything. So, what are we talking about when we talk about the literary criticism of this short story? I'll tell you where we have to, well, here's where we have to start. We have to start where the story ends. So we have to go all the way down to the last couple lines of this short story. Gazing up into the darkness, I saw myself as a creature, driven and derided by vanity, and my eyes burned with anguish and anger. What happens here? What is this? Where does this come from? This young woman comes over and offers to help him find something that he wants to buy for his dearly beloved, and he has this reaction. Well, it seems that he saw this At the door of the stall, a young lady was talking and laughing with two young gentlemen. I remarked their English accents and listened vaguely to their conversation. Oh, I never said such a thing. Oh, but you did. Oh, but I didn't. Didn't she say that? Yes, I heard her. Oh, there's a fib. Observing me, the young lady came over and asked me, did I wish to buy anything? The tone of her voice was not encouraging. She seemed to have spoken to me out of a sense of duty. It seems to me that what is going on with this little portion of the story here, why this is important to what is going on, is how our narrator interprets this scene. What this looks like to our narrator is this young lady is playing these two men. And these two men, they have English accents. They're supposed to be the better men, right? They're the hoity-toits. They are the learned. They are the upper class. They are the Brits. They are the English. They have the English accents. And this young woman is playing the both of them. She's playing them like fiddles. And herself being less pious, he holds this against his own intentions. Our narrator sees himself unwittingly being one of these young gentlemen. Not for her, but he places in his fantasy his beloved in the role of the young lady and wonders, these two young gentlemen, is he one of these two young gentlemen for her? Is he being played in this fashion? Is he unwittingly being played in this fashion? These two young men, at least they know what's going on. They're playing into it. Is his love playing him? Is our narrator's love playing him in this very same way? Here he is foolishly looking to spend money on her to no end and no righteous reward. He has made this effort to come here while she is off watching her brother and other boys fighting for caps. She's off doing that, and she's got him up here doing her bidding. That's what's going on with that little revelation at the end. He feels as if he's being played. But I want to take this then back to the beginning of this story, because we have this word pious that pops up in the story, and we have several times already in Dubliners, 3 short stories, all of this religion going on. We have an incredibly pious society. At least that's what they'll tell you. To your face, they'll say it. Just like any pious society, there is the piousness that is shown outwardly, but then there's people underneath that. But what I want to do is I want to start here. One evening, I went back to the drawing room in which the priest had died. Before this, we are told that our narrator lives in a house in which a priest had died. It seems completely throwaway. Who cares, right? Except for this. Look what we're doing here. One evening, I went to the back drawing room in which the priest had died. A very pious man had lived here. This is where he died. In this room, I pressed the palms of my hands together until they trembled, murmuring, O love, many times. Our narrator has built a religion of this girl. He has these practices where he goes and prays to her, O love, pressing his palms together, O love, please. He looks for her. He has this little ditty that he does on the street where he will skirt around right behind her until it's about time to go home. Then he zooms past, knowing she's got to see me here. She'll have to be looking at me. He has built of this girl a religion. He is worshiping her. That's why it is necessary to tell us that he lives in a house of a former house of a priest, because he has built this altar to the young girl. And that's also why it's important that we get a rather peculiar. So this is about setting. This is how the setting is contributing to the narrative. The setting of the dead priest's house contributes to the narrative by letting us know that our narrator has built a religion of the girl he loves. But we get this rather peculiar little tidbit at the beginning of the story. We get this little image. North Richmond Street, being blind, was a quiet street except the hour when the Christian Brothers School set the boys free. Being blind just means there's no outlet. It's a dead end. Do you get it? We start on a dead end. We end on a dead end. He is assuming that the entirety of his pursuit of this young woman was a dead end. There was no future. There was no outlet there. There is just dead end. There is no outlet for his frustrations. There is no outlet for his love. Interpret that however you will. It is a dead end. North Richmond Street being blind. This is another example of our setting contributing to the narrative of this piece. So that's all I have for the lit crit portion of this. But now, I think there is something very intriguing for writers to observe here. We are 3 short stories into Dubliners. And I have to ask you, how old are any of these characters? How old are they? How old are the 2 in question in this story? We get in the previous story, an encounter, we get that they're probably grade school-ish age. Probably. But here's the thing. What grade? I defy you. Who cares? Oh, but don't you have to know your characters inside and out before you can write a story truthfully and wholly? Well, I mean, kind of. So there is a school of writing known as dangerous writing. The forefront of this school, so you probably have heard of Chuck Palahniuk, Fight Club, Haunted, these books, Choke. He is a student of this guy, Tom Spanbauer. Tom Spanbauer is, I believe, the guy who founded the School of Dangerous Writing. But one of the tenets of dangerous writing is simple: no measurements. No measurements. Why? What does it mean? You tell me he was 6 feet tall. That's a measurement. What does that even mean? That gives me nothing to go on in the story. So you want to tell me this character, she was in the 5th grade. That doesn't really mean anything. I mean, yeah, it's an age. It is a year. But what does that mean? She was in the 5th grade. No, she was in her final year of recess. That tells us, if you tell us this event in the story was her final recess ever, this fight occurred in her final recess ever, that tells us exactly where it was. It was the 5th grade. But more than that, what it tells us is that there is a little loss of childhood happening right there. It was in her final recess ever. There's no playtime after this. So if it is a fight that happens, that fight ends her childhood. So I think you understand what I'm saying there. Like, why would we give that element? Why would we give that detail, but not just say it was the 5th grade? The 5th grade means something different to everyone. Maybe you don't even remember your final recess, but you know what recess means. So you get context from that detail. So these characters in these stories, what grade are they in? It doesn't matter. For me, I remember my first crush the way that this narrator was crushing on this girl. So for me, this story happens in the 6th grade. I was in love with a girl named Elizabeth, short red hair, very prestigious sort of young lady. Had dignity, you know? All the dignity that a 6th grader can have. That was my crush. First crush I ever really had. So, for me, this short story happens in the 6th grade. And that, so maybe for James Joyce, it was a 4th grader. Well, if he tells me the 4th grade, to me, that doesn't make sense because for me in my life, girls were icky in the 4th grade. And then I got to middle school. Now, as a grown man, they're icky again. But for me, this short story is so much more real happening to a 6th grader versus if it were a 4th grader. So you can give these details. The short story itself is about that crush. So you give that crush, you give ideas of a general age. This kid isn't driving himself. Probably didn't have, there's no cars, right? But this kid is not looking to marry her, right? And by other aspects of the story, if he did mention wanting to marry her, we know he's speaking out of school, right? He's out of line with it. So this idea of measurements, don't give measurements, don't give numbers. Numbers don't mean anything. We get that from this short story with James Joyce. He does not care what actual grade these people are in. Now we get a little detail here after North Richmond Street being blind in that Christian Brothers School set the boys free. So I don't know what Christian Brothers School is. I know Christian Brothers Brandy. Being as they are Irish, it might be the same thing. But probably Christian Brothers School will give us a relative age if we assume that those kids go to that school. That is all I have for this short story discussion. Again, this was the 26th short story discussion in the short story discussion playlist here on the channel, but it was also the third of a 15-part series journeying short story by short story through Dubliners by James Joyce. If you enjoy this sort of thing, it really does me a lot of good on the channel. If you decide to hit that like button, it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel. There's poetry every Mondays, but there's also short stories and novel read-alongs and a little bit of writer stuff thrown in. So if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more. And hey, I hope to have you back for the next one.